Talk some winners and losers. And we've got a winner on board here, CBS Sports NFL writer Tyler Sullivan, here to deliver his winners and losers from the 8-game preseason slate on Saturday. Start with your winners. Give us 3 guys who stood out to you.
Yeah, let's look at Buffalo and offensive coordinator Ken Dorsey. If there was any concern about the transition from Brian Daboll to Ken Dorsey, those were out the window pretty quickly in this one. And specifically, you were looking at this game because the starters were in place. Josh Allen was on the field, and they look every bit the part of a Super Bowl favorite, and Josh Allen looks every bit the part of an MVP. He was 3 for 3 through an unbelievable touchdown pass to Gabe Davis in this one, and the offense as a whole hummed. 6 touchdowns on their first 6 drives. You really can't ask for anything better than that. And there was question, obviously. You want to know what the offense, if anything, is going to change with the Buffalo Bills, moving on from a talented coach like Brian Daboll into Ken Dorsey, who's never called plays before. Naturally, those are going to be some concerns of what that's going to look like, but we can, again, throw those out the window. We don't have to really worry about that. The Buffalo Bills, spoiler alert, they're going to be very good on the offensive side of the football. The other 2 winners in this one, we're going to look at first-year quarterbacks. First up, Malik Willis, Tennessee Titans pick out of Liberty. I thought he played extremely well in this game. You know, he showed some escapability, which is something that we saw earlier. He's obviously extremely mobile. He's able to move around extremely well. And then you see this right here. He's able to kind of almost get flushed out of the pocket, breaks a tackle, sidearm throw, and they move the ball down the field. And a few plays later, he's running 25 yards down the field. Overall, every time he touches the ball, he's extremely electric, and that's something that is very much needed in a Titans offense going forward. And for me, again, he is someone who certainly needs to get better as a passer, needs to develop that, but you see it. You see that he is capable of making plays with his arms. Right now, he's getting used to the speed of the game. He's probably relying a little bit too much on his legs. But you saw in this game, threw a touchdown, first of the preseason for him. He even had one earlier in the game. He threw a deep ball to the left side of the field, put it pretty much only where his receiver could get it. The receiver just couldn't come up with the catch. But you see the flashes there for him. So if you're a guy like Ryan Tannehill, you're a little bit nervous about your long-term future. I don't think you're worried about 2022. But if you have a season behind the scenes developing, if you're Malik Willis, you're going to make a compelling case to be the starting guy in 2023. And then finally for me, you look at Kenny Pickett, the Steelers quarterback. He didn't play much in this game, but the little bit that we saw was extremely impressive. He was 6 for 7 passing, ran a 2-minute drill perfectly, and just showed nice touch on his footballs. And again, overall, he has such command of this offense so early. It's extremely impressive. And like I said, the 6 of 7, the only incompletion of his night was a spiked ball. I mean, it was just absolutely perfect for him. And most notably, he was working with the first-team offense. Right now, it seems like he's clearly established himself ahead of Mason Rudolph as the number 2 quarterback on this depth chart, but he's right there with Mitchell Trubisky. And for me, if it's even, if all of a sudden they are basically the same when you put the first-team offense out there and you change the quarterbacks up, I don't know why, if you're Mike Tomlin or any of the evaluators, you don't go with the rookie and Kenny Pickett to start this season. And for me, again, you get it rolling early. I know you might have made some promises to Mitchell Trubisky, but if all of a sudden Pickett is working, even if it's a tick less, you go with that guy and you start that process right now.
So you're making the case for Kenny Pickett to be QB1 in Pittsburgh.
Yeah. I mean, again, if it's the same, even if it's a tick worse, even if it's a tick below what Mitchell Trubisky is going to give you, the long-term ceiling of getting Kenny Pickett in there early, for me, means more than anything with this Steelers team. So, yes, if he is playing to this level as he continues to do with the ones, I don't know why you don't just start this thing right out of the gate here.
So we're not worried about the small hands or anything like that? He can hang on to the football. He's going to be okay?
I think those gloves are just fine.
Yeah, because he's going to if he's the week 1 starter, he'd be facing the other guy that got a little bit criticized for small hands. Joe Burrow, how'd that work out?
Yeah, pretty well.
Exactly. The people that were saying that wasn't going to work out, they're losers. Speaking of losers, who struggled on Saturday that you're concerned about going into the season?
Well, let's keep it in Pittsburgh because, as much as we're fawning over Kenny Pickett, and I think he could be the week 1 guy, everything else around the Steelers in this game was not great, especially on the offensive line. For me, just a little bit too leaky. Again, you have the starters out there, so it's not like you're worrying about a bunch of backups or anything like that. This is the unit that is going to probably be the starting unit going into the year. And so when you have either a rookie quarterback or a guy like Mitchell Trubisky, neither one of them at this stage in their careers is able to elevate and succeed with with bad offensive line play. And you look at this game tonight, they had 24 yards rushing, and 10 of those was a Mitchell Trubisky scramble. So not particularly well in terms of running the football. And then when you talk about passing again, it just felt like they were always applying pressure. They had 1 sack on the night, but overall still, it just was way more than just that 1 sack would indicate. And this is a concern going into the year. I think Pro Football Focus has this offensive line as a bottom 3 O-line in the NFL. And if there is one thing that is going to derail Mike Tomlin's streak of no losing seasons in Pittsburgh as a head coach, it's going to be the offensive line. I think some people might have thought it might be the quarterback situation. They have a great defense. They have unbelievable skill position players. They have capable quarterbacks, multiple of them. If anything is going to derail this season for Pittsburgh, it's going to be that offensive line. And then if we go forward here, again, if we just keep looking down the list here, Albert O for the Denver Broncos is someone who you should be concerned about. I think if you're drafting fantasy football right now, you might have been using him as a late round flyer, as a guy that maybe you could say, all right, let's see what happens with Russell Wilson now aboard here. You know, maybe he's that new guy. He was playing in the 4th quarter of a preseason game. That's never a good sign if you're a veteran player or someone that is expected to have meaningful snaps in the regular season. So if you're him, you start to wonder, all right, how safe is this player? He has a very cuttable contract. It's not like they owe him a ton of money or anything along those lines. So for me, that's something that alarm bells should be going off. If you're a fantasy football lotto ticket kind of guy, you want to draft this guy later on in drafts, I would very much hold off because it doesn't feel like he is going to be on this roster or at least have a significant role here considering the playing time that we have. And speaking of playing time, we'll go down to Washington and look at the backfield there. Antonio Gibson, the fall from grace is absolutely real. He starts the game on a kickoff return, and when the first team offense comes out, it's Brian Robinson as the #1 starter behind Carson Wentz and all of those guys with Terry McLaurin and Dotson, you know, all of those guys. It's not Antonio Gibson. He's looking and watching. And so for me, it makes sense because Brian Robinson right now has been the better running back and Gibson has failed to impress. But it is pretty remarkable that you see what was once a premier prospect. I mean, we were all looking at him at one point to say, can this guy be Ron Rivera's Washington version of Christian McCaffrey? And now we're talking about him as a backup special teams player on kickoffs and on punts. And you have Brian Robinson kind of taking over for him. Gibson played well in spurts in this game. He played well pass catching and was good in a 2-minute. But ultimately, you start to wonder, all right, is he just going to be a backup and is all of a sudden this kind of dream of him being that combo receiver and feature back out the window now? I think it might be.
Yeah, his fantasy stock certainly plummeting. And when you give us these losers, a lot of the times, at least for me, I'll look at the guys or the players or the units that you say, I'll say, all right, I might be staying away from these guys for my fantasy draft. Because this is not just about losing in the preseason, but certainly the stock when it comes to fantasy. And Antonio Gibson's stock certainly starting to fall as we have seen him put into a backup role. Tyler Sullivan with his winners and losers here on CBS Sports HQ. Always a winner for us. Appreciate it, Tyler. Here's a look back at his winners and losers from an 8-game preseason slate on Saturday. Ken Dorsey, the Buffalo Bills OC, Malik Willis, and Kenny Pickett. Of course, Kenny Pickett's a winner. I mean, even though I'm a Browns fan, like, Start Kenny Pickett. Mitchell Trubisky's an Ohio guy, though. He's a Cleveland guy. So it's going to be an interesting battle there as we get closer and closer to week 1. His losers, the Steelers' offensive line, which is not really good news for Kenny Pickett. Albert O, the Broncos tight end, and Antonio Gibson, as we talked about, his fantasy stock is plummeting. We are just 19 days away from a brand new NFL season.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.